Hi there, it's Damon again. I thought I might keep talking about different ways that I've used to read the Bible in the past. Read the Bible again today, and I thought I might talk this time about the SQUARP method. Actually, I might just close the door behind me. Talking about the SQUARP method. It's actually a modified version of the Swedish method, so if you look that up online, you'll find out what that is. But I like to call it the SQUARP method, not the modified Swedish method, because modified Swedish method is a weird name. Let's kind of get into it. Yesterday we talked about the God, Jesus, and me method, and today we're talking about SQUARP. I wonder if I could get SQUARP to come up there. Anyway, we'll see. If it's in the video, I got it in. The SQUARP method, it's pretty simple. SQAAP, and they all stand for something. The first one stands for what stands out to me. So as you read the passage, what stood out to you? Q is, did you have any questions? What kind of was confusing or didn't you understand from the passage? What is the passage about? Like, what's the kind of big idea? What's the passage actually talking about? What's it trying to tell you? I like to think about this one as, imagine I had a conversation with someone and someone said, oh, what were we talking about? And I had to kind of tell them really short, we talked about how fishing is really good. Well, that's what I'm trying to do here. If someone asks me, what was this passage about? If I can tell them really short, well, this is what it's really about. And then the second A is, how does it apply to you? So how can you apply what you read to your life today and in the weeks to come? And the fifth one, P, is pray. So you should pray after you read the Bible to talk to God. Anyway, so I thought today I might read the passage first, and then you can try and do the SQUARP method along with me. One of the things I really like about this method is this: what stands out to you is different for everyone. It's just whatever hits you in the face. Oh, wow, that's really interesting. And what questions you have is different for everyone as well, because everyone kind of sees different things and wonders about different things. Anyway, I might read the passage. We're going to read from John chapter 1 again, like we did yesterday, but this time I'm going to read from verses 19 to 28. But before we do that, I thought I'd answer another question that I've been asked a lot, particularly by some youth of mine, some youth kids that I've worked with, is how much should I read? How much of the Bible should I read each day? I want to give you two two solutions to that. The first one is just kind of read for a little bit and see how it feels. So if you just kind of start, you kind of read and you're like, oh yeah, that kind of feels like the end of a story or feels like a good kind of place to pause, then pause there. And my other method is outsourcing. And that kind of is a whole bunch of methods. And so that I was thinking about. Back in the day, people added these chapters to the Bible, little sections to help us find stuff. It was also really helpful. They tried to kind of make everything within a chapter kind of fit together. So that's a kind of good place to stop. Another option is most Bibles these days have little sections with headings in them. And so that's another way you can do it. You can kind of read through a section, and the people who put those section headings there have kind of helpfully tried to say, this is a little bit that all fits together, and here's another bit that fits together. And another way you can outsource is going to a Bible reading program, but again, we're going to talk about that in the next video. But for now, let's read this passage and then let's talk about the SQUARP method. Okay, from John chapter 1, verse 19. Now this was John's testimony when the Jewish leaders in Jerusalem sent priests and Levites to ask him who he was. He did not fail to confess, but confessed freely, I am not the Messiah. They asked him then, who are you? Are you not Elijah? He said, I am not. Are you the prophet? He answered, no. Finally they said, who are you? Give us an answer to take back to those who sent us. What do you say about yourself? John replied in the words of Isaiah the prophet, I am the voice of one calling in the wilderness. Make straight the way for the Lord. Now the Pharisees who had been sent questioned him, why then do you baptize if you are not the Messiah, nor Elijah, nor the prophet? I baptize with water, John replied, but among you stands one you do not know. He is the one who comes after me, the straps of whose sandals I am not worthy to untie. This all happened at Bethany, on the other side of the Jordan, where John was baptizing. All right, so let's go through the SQUARP method and let's talk about some of those things. So S, what stood out to me? Well, as I read through that the first time, the thing that kind of really struck me was John's kind of confession that he is not the Messiah. The Messiah was kind of this promised savior, which you read about heaps in the Old Testament, or a bit in the Old Testament. And John here is straight up saying, that's not me, that's someone else. What questions did I have? I thought there was an interesting question. They asked, are you the prophet? And he answered, no. And when I read that, I was like, oh, that's a bit interesting, because I thought John, John the Baptist, who this is talking about, different guy to the guy who wrote it. That's confusing. So John, the apostle, wrote about John the Baptist. But anyway, he says, no, he's not the prophet. And I thought he was a prophet. So that's one of the things I want to try and think about and try and figure out. I think it might have something to do with the fact that they ask, are you the prophet? Not are you a prophet, but are you the prophet? I think that might be head me in the right direction. What's the passage about? Now this is a bit tricky and sometimes hard to figure out what exactly this passage is about. But I think it's very simple and very similar to anything that you read. If you want to try and figure out what something's about, you just kind of treat it like any sort of book or literature or letter or anything like that. And you kind of look at things like themes and repeated words and all that sort of stuff. That kind of helps you understand what a passage is about. And I think this passage, what it's really about is about telling us that John the Baptist is important, but he's not that important. And Jesus is the one that's really important that we should pay attention to. Notice throughout the whole passage, they're asking him, is he kind of important? Is he the Messiah or this prophet or Elijah? And he says no. And then John the Baptist, points us to Jesus. At the end there, he shows us how insignificant he is compared to Jesus when he says he's not even worthy to untie his sandals. I think what it's trying to tell us, what this passage is about, is it's about how important Jesus is, because he's actually the most important. And that kind of ties into what we talked about yesterday, because it said that Jesus was God. And so if Jesus is God, come to the world, then he's clearly very important and we should probably pay attention to him. So how does this apply? I was thinking this applies to our lives or my life, in that it helps me think, am I treating Jesus as important as he really is? Because he's really important. John the Baptist says he's not even worthy to untie his sandals. I wonder if I treat Jesus as though he's actually that important. And so I think for me, I want to try and think and make sure that over the rest of today and over the next few days, I'm trying to make sure that I put Jesus in the place that he belongs as really, really important. In fact, so important because he is God. And then the last one is pray. And so you could do that now. You could use the same method as yesterday. Pray something about God. Pray something about Jesus and pray something about you. Or you can just try and talk to God and talk about some of the stuff in the passage and talk about what's going on in your life. But we're going to leave it there for today. And tomorrow, hopefully I'll be back and we'll talk about another passage and another way that I found helpful to read the Bible. All right, bye.